Second priority, preventing and mitigating conflicts. Of course, this peacekeeping, peacemaking, peace-conserving, conflict-preventing role of the UN was a foundational purpose for this institution. Third, building a world that is safer and more secure for all, that respects human rights, that lives up to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is the moral constitution of this organization and one of the greatest documents of our time. And I hope that all of you take time to read the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, see what the world stands for in principle and forgets in practice so often. Because building the reality of those rights for all is, again, one of the essential core tasks for each of us. Fourth, on the Secretary General's agenda is supporting countries in transition. Transition of the Arab Spring, transition of countries moving to democracy and reform for the first time. Frankly, I believe all of our countries, including the United States, are in transition and need to be in transition. We need to be in transition to the new 21st century realities. The United States also needs a democratic overhaul. Our politics are also broken in important ways. Great young people at Career Square taught a lot to us and inspired the Occupy movement in the United States, a movement I strongly support and believe is also in the lead of a new progressive era for this country. So we're all countries in transition. The Secretary General has talked about how important the transition to democracy is. And the fifth pillar for the Secretary General's second term is to support youth and women, to make sure that your role is fully recognized and fully empowered in society. And I don't need to tell young people here, you're facing a very difficult economic situation, very difficult labor market, new sets of challenges, but also, I think, the most exciting opportunities imaginable to build a world of the kind that can be built with the technologies, the ideas, the knowledge, the globalization, the social networks that you have at your hand. A couple months after that five-point agenda, the Secretary General specified some specific actions, and I just want to mention those briefly as well. He talked about ending the deaths from 5 diseases. What could be more thrilling? And if you're so inclined, I know of no professional discipline more thrilling than public health, because you can really do things and you can really save lives and you can really have a huge effect at a massive scale. So we talked about our ability right now with technology and proper planning and implementation to essentially end the deaths from malaria, polio, pediatric AIDS, meaning stopping the transmission of AIDS from mother to child, tetanus of newborns and mothers around unclean, unsafe childbirth, and measles. What a great practical agenda, and how many millions of lives can be saved in that process. Second is a move to a new set of global goals with the acronym SDGs. This is very exciting for me because I'm the advisor on the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals, which are the goals to fight poverty, hunger, and disease adopted in this chamber in the year 2000. They will be in place until 2015. They've inspired huge action and huge progress. After 2015, the idea that is being discussed now and proposed is that we move from MDGs to SDGs. The SDGs would be goals that include finishing the work of the Millennium Development Goals to end extreme poverty everywhere, and doing that in a context of protecting the planet. I'll come back to that in a moment. The third action agenda is to formulate a new social contract on work and opportunity to face the crisis of unemployment in the world. The fourth is practical actions to prevent conflict. And the fifth action agenda item that the Secretary General proposed on January 25th is to open a new nature preserve in Antarctica. And this is because it is a vital frontier for environmental preservation. Let me conclude by focusing on one piece of the agenda, my corner of this as Special Advisor to the Secretary General, and that is the MDG-SDG agenda. I'm a big believer, as you might guess, in setting global goals. I'm an even bigger believer in setting global goals and then living up to them. That's even more fun. And what could be better than to set a high aspiration for your generation and then to actually do it? And I think the MDGs show that even in a noisy, crowded, divisive world where war and stupidity and so many things divert us from the great things we could do to fight hunger, poverty, and disease, we made a lot of progress. And we're making a lot of progress. And so the notion is that when the world goes to the Rio +20 summit this June, to honor, celebrate, and look forward 20 years after the Rio Environment Summit of 1992, that it will adopt the principles to move from MDGs to SDGs. I see 4 pillars for the SDGs. First, end extreme poverty. In other words, go take the progress we're making in the Millennium Development Goals and finish the work. I promise you, this is completely practical. In fact, I give it to you as a homework assignment. But you can work in groups, it's okay. And it's also open book. And you have 15 years to complete it. But it's a great, great thing to do. And that would be pillar number 1. Pillar number 2 would be to face the environmental challenges, which unfortunately, because we're bursting at the seams, are so many. It's not only climate change, it's unsustainable agriculture, it's massive pollutants from nitrogen and phosphorus runoff, it's deforestation, pollution, acidification of the oceans, destruction of marine ecosystems. There's a lot of work to do. And you can take that on. The third pillar is inclusion. The third pillar means that even if your GNP is high, what difference if there are people suffering within your society? We're not looking at the average wealth if it's divided between hugely rich and suffering poor. And we know in the United States the current realities. The rich ran off with the prize, and not in the most honest way often. And we need to get back to an inclusive society. And that's true of countries all over the world. We can't live in democracies that are really ruled by money votes rather than people votes. And we can't let these big super PACs run our democracy. That's not one person, one vote. If we have dollar votes rather than people votes, we won't make it. And so inclusive societies are crucial. And the fourth pillar to make all of this possible is governance. Governance that is honest, that is participatory, that is transparent, and that is worldwide and cooperative. And I think if we move to those 4 sustainable development pillars and adopt some specific goals for the period after 2015, it's going to give you a pretty exciting reason and possibility and direction to be involved and take on great challenges and help the world to live up to its need, responsibility, and capability.
Dr. Sachs, thank you.
Let me end. Yes, let me end with
but my question was, do we want people to ask?
I would love for that, yes. Okay. I want to end with 2 wonderful thoughts. Again, coming back to President Kennedy. because I don't know anyone who had more wonderful thoughts and ways of saying them. And thanks to his counselor and partner, Theodore Sorensen, as well. First, President Kennedy spoke most eloquently about living in diversity. That is our challenge. And what he said is astounding. He said, so let us not be blind to our differences, but let us also direct attention to our common interests and to the means by which those differences can be resolved. And if we cannot end now our differences, at least we can help make the world safe for diversity. For in the final analysis, our most basic common link is that we all inhabit this small planet. We all breathe the same air. We all cherish our children's futures. And we are all mortal. And President Kennedy said, in addition, in this chamber, in September 1963, at this podium, how we have responsibility to take this on. He had just come from the signing of the Partial Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, which was the first agreement between the United States and the Soviet Union to get off the path of mutual and global destruction. And he came to this chamber and he told the people sitting in the very seats where you're sitting that we have a chance to save the world. He said that the Partial Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, quote, can be a lever. And Archimedes, in explaining the principles of the lever, was said to have declared to his friends, give me a place where I can stand, and I shall move the world. President Kennedy turned to the world leaders where you're sitting, and he said, my fellow inhabitants of the world, let us take our stand here in this assembly of nations, and let us see if we, in our time, can move the world to a just and lasting peace. Thank you very much.
Would anyone like to step up to the mic and either side? And please ask a question rather than making a statement. And introduce yourself.
My name is Elder Pedro Perez Ortiz from New York City, and I like to describe myself as a street New Yorker. And I live nearby where you enjoy being a professor at Columbia University. My question is, you have a great blueprint. What